When you say you're into astrology, that's one thing. But there are lots of ways to be into astrology. There are lots of systems, there are lots of paths, there's lots of points and ways in which you study astrology. And today I just want to talk about a couple of them. My name is Stacy Patrice. Welcome back to my channel. So, as a person who loves astrology, obviously, and a person who's been studying various forms of astrology over time, I wanted to just take a moment to pinpoint what is actually meant by someone saying that they like astrology or they're into astrology. A person could be into astrology in a very popular way, like, oh, I just want to talk about my big three. I want to talk about the planets. I like to talk about these different signs and how to see them in people. I like the, way that I can think about people's moods or behaviors or the way they think. And chances are that person is studying Western astrology or, the more popular form of astrology. And I would think that in that instance, that person is also saying, I have an interest in psychology because I want to know about how people think. I want to know about how I think. I know some people who pair Western astrology with therapy, which they will see a lot of the same themes repeated because they are definitely in union with each other when you're studying Western astrology. You're studying psyche, you're studying the mind, you're studying the way that the mind works. And the way that the mind works is considered to be king, especially in the West, because you have to master your mind in order to do things that help benefit you and others. There's also this idea that you are subservient to your mind when really it's the other way around. Your mind really is supposed to be subservient to you. You are supposed to be the master of your mind. That means you're in a higher position than anything that your mind can conjure up. So what is that higher position you are in? Where is that? What is that exactly? And to me, that is the realm of spirituality. That is the realm of your connection to the divine, the ways in which you understand how to operate, how to move, your purpose in this lifetime, why you are here, and what are the things that are connected to you in this journey. And to me, that is where sidereal astrology comes into play. Sidereal astrology to me comes into play because you are realizing there's something deeper than the surface, than the achievement, than doing the things, than meeting the people, than knowing the characters. That's great. It's a great level of learning. But when you want to take that learning to the next level, you want to know more about yourself. And sure, especially in Vedic astrology, because it is connected to the practice of yoga and they are one, you have to understand that yes, the mind is still a factor. You are still traversing your mind. It's not absent from sidereal astrology. As a matter of fact, you are mastering your mind that much more to actualize in a way that you understand what it is that there is going on inside of you and that you are not in some way escaping the mind. No, the mind is a tool. And so we practice yoga in order to use that tool and tonify that tool so that when we're ready to use it for larger things, it's available to us in a way that we understand, in a way that we've been operating with. So this to me is one of the wonderful things about, understanding that. But because I teach self-love and soul healing, I am always interested in what the soul is doing, what the soul is saying, why the soul came here, what is the journey, what's happening, what's going on. And to me, I have found that place in the realm of sidereal astrology and some of those specifications, of course, in Vedic astrology. Now, one of the questions people give me all the time is like, what's the big difference between tropical and, sidereal? And what is that change? Well, I can't really speak for how it will land with you. But I can speak that there are levels of depth available in sidereal that are not quite connected to tropical. Because if tropical is really about the physicality of a thing, it's really, if you look at both systems as parts of a house, in my opinion, the way that the house, the curb appeal of your house is kind of what, you know, Western astrology talks a lot about the curb appeal, maybe the front door, maybe the yard, maybe the, gated community, maybe even opening the front door and looking into the great room, for all of you real estate buffs, right? Like maybe that is about as far as Western astrology has ever gotten me. And it doesn't mean I can't look at deeper things on it, but it's very surface if you're a seeker. It's very, very, you know, centered and anchored on the perspective, opinions, and perception of others and how you can be a part of that mix using what you have. Whereas the tendency that I find in sidereal astrology is I am actually in the basement. I have seen the steps and I am actively walking into the basement. And there are treasures in the basement that are down there for safekeeping. And it's only for the most adventurous to find. Some people might say the attic, but I think the attic is a little too small and it doesn't really hit home on my metaphor of depth. So I'm going to go to the basement and I'm going to say all of the subconscious matter, all of the things that you haven't taken time to look at, all of those wonderful treasures that are who you came here to be, the things that you have to actively do and actively remember, the ways in which you have to actively dig and dive into the things that are true about yourself, the ways that these metaphors that we're using start to come to life first in the void when you find that there's nothing about what it is you want to know. And then you bump into something like sidereal astrology, and then you start seeing everything start to, make itself more prominent. And then you realize there's a whole bunch of things that may have been living and even possibly moving in that dark basement before you turned on the light and went down there. And that to me is the beauty of why sidereal astrology has a place, even in the West, especially in the West, as we start to look behind those things. Now, I can tell you that a lot of the people you look up to, the leaders, the executives, the heads of state, a lot of these people use astrology every day. And some of you are tricked into thinking that astrology is some kind of dark magic and that's the only way that it can be used. And you don't understand that there are people that use it that way. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean it's the only way that it can be used. It can also be used as a divine telling, as a divine art, divination. It can also be used in a way that helps you to see and illuminate the things that maybe you didn't know were there or didn't have the time to look at, but your spirit led you to understand more about what this is saying. And some people find that dangerous because it is a slippery slope. You can go too far and look into things and start predicting things, and you don't need to do all of that. Just to know yourself is valuable, especially in the West. But you don't use it to turn yourself into this personality. You can use Western for that. In sidereal, you want to know what is this journey you are on and what are the kinds of things that it may lead you into. And I'm not saying that from a physical body perspective. I'm saying that from a soul perspective. I'm saying that your soul has already encoded and imprinted certain things into your life and you just haven't learned how to read them. I'm saying your soul is in the driver's seat when you're deciding if you're going to do this or do that. I'm saying your connection to the divine is speaking through your soul and your soul is animating through your spirit. And that if you're not paying attention to this level of lineage, then what you're doing is you're simply saying to yourself, well, I am physical, I have will, I can do all things that are possible, and I can make whatever it is that I'm thinking, I'm feeling possible. And what I'm saying to you is not quite. There are certain things you'll be more inclined to do. You do have free will. You can do anything you set out to do, but your level of difficulty, ease, grace, connection, humanity, all of those things are factors that you have to look at that make what it is that you're doing make more sense. Okay. So I'm saying all of this to say, take your time, look at these systems. Another system that I've studied is also medical astrology. And medical astrology is, one of those systems, my teacher happened to make it fun. She's amazing. Shout out to Salima. She happened to make it fun, but medical astrology is one of those things, and mine is used for the purpose of herbalism. It's one of those things that you really have to study and take your time with. And the more you learn about that, you learn a lot about the West. You learn a lot about the way things used to be and why these systems mattered. Medical astrology was the system of diagnosis before prescribing things, before, telling people what they need to do. And so knowing that, that is also a form of divination, but you probably don't call it that. You probably don't say it's a form of divination until a herbalist picks it up. When you think about it in a medical context, you're probably thinking, wouldn't that be great if every time I went to the doctor, they had my chart and they could tell me what's probably going on with me in a way that I could stop taking so many pills, stop trying so many diets, stop running around trying to figure out what this nagging symptom is. And they can just look at my chart and say, here's what it is. You have this, this, and this, which means the excess of heat. And then you have this, which means you'll probably have some challenges with your lungs, but we can remedy and offset that by using these herbs and this and that. And it's a beautiful thing, right? So why is that not a beautiful thing? Why do we not look at that as a negative? And some of you might not have even known that that was one of the premier usages of astrology in the West, but it was. And it still can be. And so we use these tools as asset management, as we're learning to better manage who we are and what we have to bring and what we have to give. We have these tools. Other tools outside of astrology, of course, I said herbalism, you have human design, Ayurveda, you have all of these maps of how to purchase a house, what kind of house to purchase, everything from Vastu to, the Bagua charts and, all of the feng shui, all of these things. There's so many systems. And it's no surprise that they all are centered in the East. And a lot of these systems are Afro Asian and indigenous in nature in terms of how to utilize these systems, whether it is the understanding of the sky map for your crops and your agriculture, or whether it's for understanding of your own asset and how you are moving through life. And if you are, making sure that you're touching the points that you came here to touch in this lifetime. This is important stuff. And this is not just me advocating for these systems. And it's me asking you, how do you use these systems? How do you view these systems? Do you use these systems? These are all important conversations to have. And so I encourage you, when you think about someone talking about astrology, to get past the front door, get past the curb appeal of it. It has curb appeal, right? But when do you decide to be in the house in such a way that it is curious? It's curiosity that leads you to the basement. It leads you to the place where all things are talking about the health and the system that you are looking at up top. Because if that basement is a mess, well, that curb appeal can only go so far. It won't have any buyers because the buyers will say, the foundation of this house is shaky, and I'm not really sure I want to invest in this. But if you take your time to fix what's happening in the basement, you get that new furnace, you have that new washer dryer, you take care of the floors, the ceilings, the pipes, you make sure everything down there is smooth and all lines of electricity are leading to this wonderful, beautiful house upstairs, and you make improvements upstairs accordingly. You don't try to be anything you're not because you know your basement can't handle it, and you start just making this house a vision and an artistic practice of authenticity. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. I want to know your thoughts. Leave your thoughts below. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, all of those things. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next video. Make sure you take care of your basement. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.